Hello and welcome back to another episode of Temple Bound. My name is Will Humphreys, and our guest today is just a regular guy. Derek Johnson, who's our guest, wanted to make sure, and when we were doing our pre-interview, that people knew he was just a regular guy who had extraordinary experiences as he started to increase his temple attendance and his worship. It became very evident to him that the more he put effort in, the more he started to see and connect to Heavenly Father and the Savior. This episode is very special to me because Derek overcame a lot to get to this episode and film these stories with you. These stories are inspiring because they're just normal stories of what can happen to anyone when we just consistently put forth just a little bit more effort. The Lord is able to unlock the door and the windows of heaven and pour down blessings on us. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this episode, so enjoy the show. So Derek, thank you so much for being on the show today. You know, when we were talking just before we hit record, you had really expressed the desire to share something today through the Holy Ghost that would really mean something to the people that were listening. Would you mind sharing that again? That thought of like what your intentions were by being a guest on the show?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just a regular guy who likes to go to the temple, who has made a conscious effort to go to the temple. And as I've done that, I've watched changes in our lives, in my own life, and the life of my wife and I as we've gone together. And I just feel like I just hope that we can say something that inspires someone to attend to the temple a little bit more, maybe a little bit more intentionally, and really open themselves up for spiritual experiences and to draw themselves closer to Jesus Christ. I think that's I hope we have something to say that will help that. I guess that's was my goal.
Yeah, and I love that you shared that. The reason I asked you to share it is because I was touched as we were preparing for this, that you really were coming from a place of service. So I believe that there's someone out there who's listening to this show today who is going to hear something that they need to hear. So I hope, listeners, that you'll pay close attention because there's been a lot of prayer, a lot of effort that's gone into this episodes that you can receive the message that you're meant to receive. And you know, Derek, obviously one thing that the audience needs to know is that you're Kirk's brother. Kirk Johnson and his wife were on the episode a couple episodes back at the time of this filming. And he had that goal and has that goal of seeing every temple in the United States and Canada. And he's just about there. And you were able to see that journey from the sidelines as, you know, as his brother and hear his come back to church story in those elements. And I just wonder from your perspective, what was that like for you, you know, to hear his journey coming back to the church? Obviously, you were there and you lived it.
It has been a really remarkable journey. The one thing I will say is that it's been really, really hard. It's been really hard for him. And I know he's had a lot of dark times and a lot of challenges coming back to the church. And I know, you know, the one thing I would say is that as we look around at people in our wards or people we may not know, sometimes people are visitors and we don't know them. Um, Sometimes we're the ones who are new or trying to come back. And he shared with me one time it was all he could take sometimes to stay seated and not just get out and walk out. Many, many times he just had that feeling. And he's always had a testimony of the church and of Jesus Christ. It's just that pathway to repentance and that pathway to come back for him has been very long, and I know it's very long for a lot of people. And so I guess extend grace and mercy to those around you, and for yourself. If you're coming back, the one thing that really is solid for him is his temple attendance that has really helped ground him and recreate a foundation for him that he really needed.
Yeah, and that temple connection that you guys share is really powerful because that's the reason you felt inspired to be on the show is because you've had a very strong experience, a set of experiences in your world that have changed. I loved how you said, I'm just a regular guy. And I think, you know, if there's a theme for today's topic is regular people having not irregular, but extraordinary experiences in the temple. Like we're very capable of having these experiences that can change us and help us bring us closer to the Savior. So my first question to you, Derek, is like, what happened in your world that started changing this? Like, because obviously you'd been going to the temple for years, but do you know why things started evolving for you over time? What was it that was the impetus for your increased attendance and setting goals and all those things that you started doing?
Well, we lived in Wisconsin and we were about 4 hours to the temple, you know, each way. So I remember we were in the Chicago, Illinois Temple District, and between where we lived, Chicago, Illinois, or St. Paul, Minnesota, we're about the same distance.
Mm.
Um, and I remember going to the temple one time with my wife. She was working on a master's program, a little bit out of the direct path to the temple, and I just said, "Honey, we really need to go to the temple. I really feel like I need to go." And we took that time and went to the temple, and it ended up being 10, 11 hours during the day on a weekday. We got in very late, and I just was like, oh my gosh, that was so worth it. I'm so glad we did that. My daughter was at school at BYU, and my oldest, she really puts a lot of pressure on herself. She's a high achiever. She's really puts a lot on her plate. And she's like, oh, I have this test, I have this paper, and I'm working, and I have to get to the temple yet this week. And I'm being a wise father, I thought I was. I said, honey, maybe if going to the temple is putting that extra stress on you, I said, maybe make the goal and go 3 times a month instead of every week. That way, if you have a week like this where you really can't make it, you don't beat yourself up too much. And she said, Dad, I don't want to get in the habit of not doing something that I know I'm supposed to do. And I was like, okay, yeah, scratch what Dad just said. Forget about Dad's bad advice. And to hear her want to go to the temple and know that she needs to go to the temple was something for me. Anyway, we ended up moving down here to New Mexico. The temple now is 53 minutes from the door of my house to the door of the temple. And I
Wow.
said, I need to go to the temple more. And so I made the goal to go once a week. Um, so I started doing that. And a lot of times I would just go to the temple just because I had the goal. It's like, well, I have the goal, I'm going. They closed my temple for one of those extended cleaning periods. So like 6 weeks, right?
Right.
And I was talking to some people at church, and I said, man, I really miss going to the temple. And I realized that when I said that, the temple had only been closed for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I thought, okay, it's having an effect on me that I didn't even realize that it was having. And that really kind of increased my resolve to continue to go. And we were skating. There was a young men's activity, or youth activity, and we were ice skating. And I was really having a hard time with these skates. I go, I don't know what's going on. I'm not that bad of an ice skater. There is some problem here. And I kind of looked at the skate, and I'm like, you know what? I don't even think they sharpened them. I think that they're hockey skates and they weren't sharpened. And I thought, let me go around one more time. I'll go around. And if I'm having that much trouble, I'll go through the hassle of going and exchanging my skates. And I slipped and fell, and I went directly back onto my head. So, my I didn't touch the ground with my arms or shoulders. I went straight back to my head. And I got a mild concussion. We're going home that day, and I thought, in my line of work, I've seen plenty of people with head injuries, and they can be really devastating. And I just thought to myself, why, wow, that could have been so terrible. That could have been so devastating. And the words in my mind came, you were protected because of your temple attendance, which subsequently increased my resolve to go more. Um,
Yeah.
because these two things really reminded me of the power of the temple. The one, I didn't even realize that it was having an effect on me in perceptible changes, I suppose. And the other one was a direct correlation. Like, this just happened, and this isn't a devastating tragedy for you and your family because you're going to the temple. So that's been that. So we've decided to, I go to the temple weekly. But something I heard in general conference talk, and I couldn't find the reference, and they had talked about going to the temple while on vacation, and I thought, oh, I'd never really thought about that.
Mm.
So we started to do that. We said let's go to the temple while on vacation. So when we go to some places, we'll go. Oh, we'll definitely have to go to the temple. Like was looking for a place for spring break coming up, and I'm going. If there's no temple there, we're not going. You know,
Wow.
we want to go some nice beach place, but also has a temple nearby.
What a switch,
So
by the way. What an amazing
yeah,
switch. Because you were going from like, yeah, I don't go to like, I should go because my daughter's setting a good example for me to now it's like you're picking your vacations based on this because of these small but perceptible changes that have added up over time for you. That's pretty amazing to think about how that's shaped your travel world now. You want to go experience these temples in different ways.
yeah. Last year we were in Seattle in the fall. We were in Seattle, and we went up to the Vancouver Temple
Mhm.
in British Columbia. So we were only up there for a day. We drove up, went to the temple, went around Vancouver, coming back, and coming across the immigration control guy says, you know, what were you doing up in Canada? And I said, well, our church has temples, and we like to go to see these temples. They're different than a regular meeting house. And he kind of stopped me and he goes, so you're kind of like on a little temple tour or something? And I looked at him and I go, are you a member? And he goes, yeah. And I go, yeah, we're gonna do we're gonna do 6 temples up here in Washington and Portland, and this week. And he goes, that's really cool. He goes, I want to do Thailand. I want to go to the Thai temple. And my screensaver on my phone is my son who's on his mission now. My son and I in front of the Bangkok Thailand temple from last year. And I showed it to him. And avoided them taking apart our car and stripping down our car looking for contraband. So I guess that was good. But
It was a good like inside thing to make sure you cross over the border safely. But tell me about this Bangkok, Thailand trip. What was? I would love to hear about that experience of going to Thailand and experiencing the temple over there.
we the first thing when we decided, we found like a cheap trip to Thailand, and we said, well, we got to go to the temple, right? So it was like a 25-hour flight by the time we left out of here and got into Bangkok. And so the first night we were going to go to the temple. I'd already made appointments in the temple. So we went to the hotel and changed and went over to the temple. And in some of the busier temples here, you'll get like five. You can only do 5 names, or you can only do 10 names, or whatever. And so we were kind of ready for that. We're like, okay, we'll do 5 names. Everyone brings some names, and if they'll let us do more, they'll let us do more. And we went into the temple, and the sister comes over to me and says, "Are you willing to stay here longer? And do you have more time?" And I'm like, "Yeah. I mean, this is what we're doing. This Saturday night. This is what we're doing. We're here at the
Aren't you like
temple."
jet lagged at this point, Derek? Aren't you like super
Yes.
tired and jet lag? I mean, because I've gone to Southeast Asia. Like that's not an easy thing.
Yeah. No, no. Yeah, we're pretty tired, but this is what we're doing. So it was amazing. And she said, will you stay longer? And we said, yeah. And a young woman came in. She said, can you help this young woman do the names that she brought in? And we said, of course. And how many do you have? She had 50 family names she brought in. We helped her do those baptisms. We helped her in the confirmation. My son had been complaining about his achy shoulder. My son, who's on his mission now, does a lot of weightlifting, and he'd been complaining to me for 3 weeks that his shoulder was hurting. And he goes in and does 50 baptisms. He comes out of the water and he goes, Dad, my shoulder doesn't hurt. I'm like, oh, good, good. And as we go into the changing room, he kind of says something like, so so that's what it's about, right, Dad? Just meeting, like doing all that work for a family. And I go, yeah, yes. You felt that? I go, well, I felt it. Just the spiritual experiences that he was having. We did confirmations, and then I asked the sister, we'd like to go upstairs and see the celestial room. We'd like to look around. She goes, okay, well, wait here. And I knew we had to change. And so someone else came along while we're waiting, and And she said, and they said, oh, I told them we'd like to go upstairs and look in the celestial room. And they said, oh, yeah, we'll take you up and show you where you need to go. And we found the lady who had been down in the baptistry earlier when we were up there. She misunderstood us. She thought we wanted to do ceilings.
Oh,
It's a it's a Saturday night at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night.
you haven't
She's
slept in a day and a
upstairs.
half.
Wait, no, we haven't slept in a day and a half, a little on the plane. She's upstairs looking to see if someone will help us do ceiling. And I'm going, okay, yeah, this is what it's about, right? She's not like, oh, it's time to go home. We're closing down. She's like, no, what else would you like to do? And it's one of those experiences that we will always remember that just simply would not have happened had we not gone, right? And I think that's what I'm finding a lot is that if you just go, just go. It's not like a miraculous thing. It's not that hard. Like it's being in the right place at the right time.
Wow. I love that. I want to punch that really hard. That the power of going to the temple is just being in it. Like there's definitely things I've talked about on other episodes about preparing and all these things, but consistency and effort trump all. Just showing up. I love the simplicity of that, Derek. Just being able to walk in there. And I will tell you, I relate to you, Derek. Like most of my temple experiences have been very, very normal experiences that over time have created a change in me that I can't describe. But this last week, man, I have some tremendous pressure in my personal world going on, and it was palpable. But when I walked into the temple, immediately feeling this calm, internal calm that I did not have before. And I think part of it is that it's almost like there's no effort involved. Our spirits are actually, that's our home. So I almost wonder if our spirits just naturally commune with the other side when we're there naturally and organically. And then all those wonderful blessings start to open up for us just because of that obedience. And it feels to me like that's, again, I see the effort you put into that with your family, Derek. This idea that like that's a long trip. You guys were exhausted. Your son, kudos to this guy for being open for it, because that's why the Spirit was able to testify so strongly to you guys. And this wonderful temple worker who just modeled heaven of like,
Yeah.
let's, you want more, let's do more because this is urgent. This is important. If you've got the strength, let's go. And
Yeah.
man, what a powerful experience.
Yeah. A lot of times we're there, I feel for ourselves. Obviously we're doing work for others. But we also never know like who we're there to touch. So when my second daughter was about to go on her mission and we went to the temple for the first time, again, we were in the Chicago, Illinois temple district. And I said, hey, we've never been to the Nabu temple or done an ordinance there. So let's go to the Nabu. And we're sitting in the Nabu temple. They brought us in the session a little bit early because it was my daughter's first time. And a couple walked in who was about to get married. And so we were sitting there. We had some alone time with them, and we're beginning to talk to the sister. We always make connections. Where are you from? What do you do? Who do you know? And the world seems to be really small. So this sister served her mission in my mission in Trujillo, Peru.
Mm.
My wife is from Trujillo, Peru. So we start talking with this sister who, recently finished her mission in Trujillo, Peru. And she started saying, well, were you ever in this area? And yes, I was. And do you know so-and-so? And do you know Jorge Silva? And she says, oh yeah, he was the bishop in my last ward. And my ward I was in for a long time is my bishop. And my wife says, oh, that's my brother. And they just had this instant connection of, yeah, not only did my wife is from there, I served in her mission, but no, that's my brother that was the bishop while you were there working, right? So I'm down changing after our session, and they come into the locker room. They say, "Is Brother Johnson in here?" Brother Johnson. I'm like, okay, yeah. You're wanted upstairs. I'm going, okay,
Okay.
what does this mean? What does this mean? We were invited to a ceiling this young sister who was getting married. And it was really a beautiful ceremony. And I don't find out till later that as my wife continued her conversation with this young woman, really had some doubts that morning, to where kind of in frustration, maybe desperation, she says to God, "Do you even know who I am?
Hmm.
Do you even know I'm here?" And shortly thereafter, she walks into a room where they make this incredible, connection from across the world. We've got no business in, the Nabu temple. Honestly, we should have been in Chicago, right? And we decided we should go to Nabu that day. A couple of weeks ago, we were in the Birmingham, Alabama temple. I went to see, we went to see a friend also from Peru. We went to see her. I lived with her family when I was a missionary. They had missionaries, staying in their home, and so that's where I stayed. And we've kept in contact. And she's older now, and so we said, "Would you like us to take you to the temple?" We want to go to the Birmingham temple. We've not been there before, so we go to the Birmingham temple. And um, after a session, I go outside. I'm kind of walking the grounds, waiting for my wife, going, "Why is she taking so long?" And she comes out. She says, "Oh, guess who I ran into? Um, the daughter of some friends of ours that we knew from Wisconsin, and they live in Utah. We live in New Mexico. And we ran into their daughter in the Birmingham, Alabama temple, who was really homesick and just needed a friendly face. And she saw my wife, and we took her out to lunch, and we spent some time with her, and we felt some impressions of things we needed to share with her. And again, this goes, for me anyway, it just goes back to you were in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. And I was going to do that Birmingham temple a couple weeks prior on a work trip that ended up getting canceled. And so I said, you know what? We made the promise to go see this lady. We should go. We should go anyway. So let's go. We'll just go a couple weeks later. The one day this young sister was in the temple, she serves in the temple once a month, and that's the day we're there. So this is what my brother and I would call a 100% non-coincidental coincidence.
I gotta say that. Hold on, I gotta punch that. A 100% non-coincidental coincidence.
Coincidental coincidence. Yeah. I think as we watch, God's hand, I just really feel really strongly about that. Just being in the right place, making that effort is really, I felt, paid dividends.
I agree. I think there's something so powerful. This is why, it's amazing how the Lord's hand works in these things, because we have miracles, and truly, like, there's this thing called coincidence that you guys were jokingly referring to it as 100% non-coincidental coincidence. This idea that, like, there's only so many times where I have gone into these experiences where I have these moments of like, wow, that was a really rare coincidence that just so happened to communicate to my heart peace and love. And it's one of those things that I could tell it to other people who maybe aren't, a member of my faith, and they go, wow, that is really rare and how special, but what a coincidence. But when you're living it and you experience it over and over and over again, it's just and that's why I think I wonder if that's one of the reasons why we're told to keep going back and go as often as our circumstances allow, right? Because the more we go, it's not a matter of like, hey, you need this to bless other people. It's like, no, we need you to know, what you can't see unless you're going. And this idea that when you're going, like when you went to Nauvoo, for example, Derek, I love that story of like, you were already committed to doing something really righteous to go to the temple. And you just felt like you needed to go to Nauvoo. It wasn't like this big angel going, Derek, you need to take your family, it's because you're already committed to doing something righteous, that I don't think it requires a lot of effort from the other side of the veil to go, just go this way. And then all of those angels on the other side are coordinating and conducting these things to where at the right moment, when a daughter was going to predictably question whether or not God even hears her voice, that there would be such a non-coincidental coincidence that would show up for her to remind her that the Lord is so mindful of her. And just I
Yeah.
want that joy. I loved how it started with your daughter being like, "Hey, I just want to keep doing the right thing," and you just have layer after layer of evidence, evidence of the Spirit working in your life to tell you, "Hey, your attendance matters, not just to you, but to a lot
Yeah.
of other people."
Yeah. I agree. And a lot of times I really, really do is just being in the right place. And you'll see these tender mercies that are there all over. They just seem to really abound when you make the temple a priority. We were blessed to go back to Peru for the dedication of the Trujillo temple.
Wow.
And so we're like, well, we have to go, right? We have to go. So we got into a session, and my wife, because she grew up there, after the session, everyone's so quiet. Like, you're just really quiet. No one says a word and no one looks around. You're just eyes forward, quiet. So after the dedication ceremony, my wife kind of leans forward and says to me, she looks around and she goes, I can't believe this. I grew up here and I don't recognize a single person in this whole room. I don't recognize any of them. And then she kind of leans forward and looks, oh, except her, which sitting next to me, but on the other side of the aisle, was a woman, Nancy, that I baptized 25 years prior to
Gosh.
that. So she's sitting right next to me during this thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, that's not happenstance. It's just it isn't, And the more these kind of things happen, you just go, okay, if I do the right thing and tried my best to follow those promptings, we really have amazing experiences. And yeah, it was a really beautiful experience to see her in the temple with me.
What was that like for like what was that interaction like? Did she remember you? Like tell me a little bit more about that and what that meant to you
She
personally.
she did remember me because we had been there about 5 years prior to that. I thought I should take my kids down there, and we, believe it or not, ran into her again. I was getting money from the ATM. We were going to go to a movie with my wife's family, and this lady walks by and says, "Oh, hey, I think Derek baptized that woman. I'm because it was in her ward. She remembered her, and she goes, I'm going to go see if that's her, and it was. So we had this beautiful embrace that I got to, uh, hug her, and she just, burst into tears. And my mom was there with us, and this lady is thanking my mother profusely for letting me come on a mission to find her. And so, about 5 years later, now I see her again in the temple. So we had connected from, previously, but it was still pretty amazing. I mean, if you look at it, go, okay. My kids always play this game when they're on trips. What are the odds? And they say, what are the odds that this happens? And they throw out odds. I'm like, really, what are the odds? It's just pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
And then to keep rolling those odds over and over again. I
Yeah.
one experience I'll share quickly with you that relates to this is I was 2 years ago, I was asked to speak at girls camp here in Arizona. And that was a very heavy ask for me because although I'm comfortable on stage, I don't have any daughters. I have no idea what I'm going to say to, 12 to 18-year-old girls about life. And it was something that weighed very heavily on me. And so I went to the temple often just to try to get guidance. And the day before I was going to go up, I woke up early that morning with a strong idea that I needed to go. And I live very close to the Gilbert Temple. And so I got up, got dressed. I went down there without a reservation. And it was a busy day. I was going to work all day and then drive up late that night. But I was up extra early. And so I was just doing initiatories to kind of just fit them in. And there was a brother sitting next to me in the chairs who was waiting who also didn't have a reservation. And he turns to me and he's just like, man, I woke up this morning and I needed to be here today. That's why I don't have a reservation. And I went, man, that's me too. And so we started talking, and it turned out that this brother was someone I had never met before. He was giving, he was speaking at young men's camp where my boys were going to be the next day while I was at girls' camp. And we're sitting there not knowing each other, being called in totally different parts of the of Gilbert, Arizona to go to the temple. And so when we were there together, there was an immediate, what 100% non-coincidental coincidence that I'd be sitting next to the brother, that we would even start talking, that would even make that connection. And he turned to me and goes, I feel like you need to say this. And I had something for him to say. And then I will never forget that. Like there's something about the way that when we choose to stand in holy places, that we find ourselves standing with the right people that we need at that moment, whether we plan it or not. And it's so beautiful how, at the end of the day, the most special and sacred miracles we experience are these things called connections, you
Yeah.
know? Like, yeah, like the chances of that happening were so rare, but to me will always live like your stories have you been telling as a testimony that Christ is just mindful of us and that he is surrounding us with not just people we see, but people we don't see to help us.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that 100%. Um, you know, since COVID, where now we have to, make appointments for the temple,
Yeah.
it seems because of my work, some days are busier than others, or some days get prolonged. And so, I go, okay, I'm going to go during the week. And someday I go, I can go tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be able to go. So I'll quickly make an appointment and I'll look and go. Everything will be going fine in the morning and then turn into a disaster in the afternoon. And I'm like, every time I make an appointment, it becomes something frustrating, tries to keep me from going. It's crazy. And um I made this appointment and I was running late. And like I know I'm running late. And I made an appointment to do some ordinances that, if you're late, you may not get to do as many, but they're usually pretty accommodating. But in my head, I had all worked up, the lecture I was about to receive for, well, brother, you should have been here 10 minutes before your time. And I'm fighting traffic to get to the temple, and all this stuff is going through my head. It's really frustrating. And I'm going, I'm sorry, Satan. Today is not your day because I'm going. I may not like it, but I'm going, And I walked in and I was in a rush. And the first thing the young man, he's a young man, probably not too old, off his mission, not too many years off his mission. He just looks at me dead in the eye, and I'm ready for the lecture. Like, I've already got my defense argument up. I'm going, don't be contentious, but be borderline contentious. And he looks at me and says, Brother Johnson, thank you for coming to the temple today. Thank you for taking your time to be here. And I'm like, I'm so sorry that I'm late. Can I please just quickly change, and whatever you can do to accommodate me, I'll accept. I'm fine with that. And he goes, we're just happy you're here. And I will say, the way he said that to me, it really felt like God was saying that to me.
Hmm.
Like God was saying, I saw and appreciate and love your efforts. Thank you for doing what you can to be here. And I mean, that changed my entire day. Uh, it has changed, weeks. It has changed how, when I'm going to the temple and I am rushed and I am getting the uh, um, opposition, to just kind of keep going, just keep my head down and say, I'm going to go, I'm going to do the right thing. The Lord wants me to be there. I'm trying to be there. He knows what I'm trying to do, and accept that. And I I mean, just thinking about it, I just brought back to that feeling of going and being accepted. And I think we beat ourselves up quite a bit. I know we do in the church. I do it too. And if we would just say, "Hey, this is the Lord, right? This is this is the Lord." The prodigal son is returning, and he's not standing there going, "Gee, you're late." He's running to you. And I think we need to view and remember that's what the character of God. That's who he is, right? He just wants you to come. He just wants you to come home. He just wants to give you a hug, give you the fatted calf. So come home. Come quicker, but come home. I think I'm feeling that more and more through my temple attendance.
Yeah, it's touching to think that there's no wrong way to go home, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, late, imperfect, inconsistent, consistent. Just God, just so grateful that you're there. I know for me, I think about my own kids. Every parent can think about what that feeling is like when on a routine level and they're a little bit older, they come home after being out with their friends and you're just glad that they're home safe, especially if they're on time. And then you get other things when they start leaving home for longer periods of time or even leaving the house permanently and they come home. That feeling is just something you can't communicate, right? And it's small
Yeah.
compared to what our Heavenly Father must feel every time we make an effort. He's not this angry God that has been painted by the adversary, a judgmental, shaming, um, minimizing individual. He is the embodiment of love. And just, I love that reminder that he's just grateful we're there. There's
I
no agenda beyond that. He's just excited to see us.
I think so too. I think so too. You know, I um since I've made the goal to go to the temple, and we've made going to the temple like part of vacations and part of, hey, we're going to the temple. This is what we're doing. I've really watched my kids who are now all out of the house be temple focused, and I'm really appreciative of that. They'll take pictures of where they are and where they were. I'm at whatever temple today, and they'll take a picture. And about 2 summers ago, on the same day, we had kids in Pocatello, Idaho, Provo, Utah, and Paris, France, all at all at the temple on the same day. And I'd go, okay, I guess that makes a parent very happy to watch them do that on their own. I'm not calling them up and saying, "Hey, are you going?" They're doing that. And I think it's important for us to show that to our kids, that going to the temple is important, that making time is important, and sharing nice experiences that we have in the temple with them too. And I think they're seeing it. I mean, my son, who's on his mission in Brazil, hence the Brazilian flag, um, says the other day he's got plans to go to BYU, Idaho. And he goes, "How many temples are there, Dad?" And I said, "Oh, there's one." And he goes, "Oh, that's not good." I go, "Why?" And he goes, "It'll be so busy, I won't be able to go very often." And I go, "Oh, no, don't worry. They're building another one right there." Um, but the idea that he's on his mission already thinking, when I get home, I need to make sure I'm going to the temple, really kind of warmed our hearts this past week when we got to talk to him. So,
Yeah, I think there's a real common theme in our discussion today, Derek, of coming home. You know,
yeah,
I think that's what's ironic is I filmed another episode right before this with Mitch Johnson, and that was one of the major arching themes that he was talking about was the temple and how it's like coming home and just the welcomeness of it all. And so I love that you shared these stories, Derek, regarding, the non-coincidental coincidences of your life and the miracles that have happened, not just in the ways that you've been blessed, but the way that you've blessed other people. I think as people are listening to this, I just hope that they remember that the only thing that matters in life is family and God. That's the only thing that matters. And that temple is a great chance for them to be able to connect with that. So as we wrap things up, I would love, this is temple and family history. I would love for you to leave a few words, if you don't mind, to your descendants, your kids, your grandkids, your great grandkids, kids you haven't met yet, what would you want them to know about your love for the temple?
I guess I would want them to know that by going to the temple, I have found out maybe more than I had before. I learned more than I had how much my Father in heaven loves me and how much our Father in heaven loves them. And I think those feelings of coming home, I think are, um, I mean, that's really what it is. I have felt that during COVID and after the COVID and the restrictions were lifted. I remember going into the Albuquerque, New Mexico temple and walking up the stairs. You know, the first thing you do after you go by the recommendation desk in that temple and you go up the stairs. And I had that exact impression. You are home. This is your home. And I feel lucky that they would even allow me to like come in and clean, let alone participate in ordinances there. And I definitely feel like it is home. I definitely feel those impressions of a heavenly Father who loves us and will do anything for us. And he has a way to help us get back to him. And I think for me, temple attendance, intentional temple attendance, I think has really made a big difference in my life.
Derek, thank you so much for feeling inspired to be on the show and for believing that these stories matter, because they do. I am inspired. You know, we talked about at the beginning of this episode how there needs to be one person. Your intention was to help one person hear something they needed to hear. So consider it done. I heard what I needed to hear today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I'm going to be on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode of Temple Bound. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to join us over on Instagram at Temple Bound Podcast to receive additional information as well as previews of our upcoming episodes. See you over there.